The cars are lining up, ready to go out for the 2B race in the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Championship. Paul Tucker starts on pole position, but as you can see, it is pouring down with rain here at Silverstone. That's going to make the race really exciting and interesting. To take you through it, it's over to Jake Sanson.
Well, race one had its slips and slides. This is going to be very interesting with a lot more rain on the circuit for the start of this one. Paul Tucker and Adrian Burge on the front row from Hector Hurst and Nick Ledoyen. Adam Craig and Bill Taylor on row 3 from Matt Pollard, the previous pole sitter, of course, alongside Oliver Graham. Richard Wootton and Alan Hawkins on row 5. Anthony Hutchins and Clive Chisnell. Then Tim Hutchinson and Bruce Carter from Russ Lyndsay and Dale Whiteman. Luke Souch is alongside Richard Bartlett. And then we have Christopher Jin in there with Chi Mung, the new boy, Graham Rumsey and Bruce Robinson from James Love and Chris Wilson. And then we have David Rickards, Charles Muggleston, Charlie Rawls, Orlando Lindsay and Scott Leach. The latter four all having retired from the first race. They've now got to charge their way through from the back if they're going to have anything to say positive about this weekend. The green flag goes at the back of the grid. Everybody's got their windscreen wipers on. It's going to be rain like this all day long by the look of it in the weather forecast. Lights are on. They extinguish. Let's race at Silverstone. It's a cracking getaway from Adrian Burge off the front of the grid. He's going to get the best of getaways. Paul Tucker in there in second position, still with a little bit of battle scars from his previous encounter, but he dives for the inside at Copse, and he's not going to run as wide as Adrian Burge has done through that first part of the course. So let's see if everybody gets through. Absolutely massive spray as they go up. This is an absolute nightmare compared to what we saw in race one yesterday. How can they all see where they're going? These guys, absolute masters of their craft as they break down for Maggots and Beckett's. They'll have to be very careful as they get through, but these guys are very sensible. There are no mentalists in this field, as Wootton going around the outside there of Hector Hurst as they nip their way through Maggots and Beckett's, and there's no dramas yet. We're on board with Adrian Burge, and we can't see a thing off the rear-facing camera, never mind the front-facing camera. Down into the braking zone for Brooklands. That's how wet it is. You're not going to get a better indication of it than that, as that up the inside is going to be Nick Ledoyen. Burge is going to run very, very wide through Brooklands. Multiple choices of racing line in these sorts of conditions, of course. But Nick Ledoyen in the MCR run machine is going to knit his way through Luffield and hopefully get good acceleration off the turn and get up the inside of Burge. But he's not going to just yet. Look how tricky the conditions are now. Everybody, of course, now set up for a wet race. They knew it this morning at 5 a.m. when the rain started in earnest. And the back of my car this evening, it was very, very loud, drumming rain on the roof. It woke me up at about 5:30 this morning. But hey, it's motor racing. You do what you do. So through they come into the first turn. And that is Richard Wootton battling away with the original pole sitter for this weekend in Group B, Matt Pollard, who dropped away further down the order in his spin in the first race yesterday. Now, there is a possibility, I think, of a safety car coming out. Certainly the lights are flashing on the recovery car. I haven't seen anybody off the road yet, but they're obviously going to be on standby in these conditions because you never quite know what's going to happen, and they're going to need to act quickly. Fortunately, the BRSCC officials have been very quick to respond through all of the races, not just the Mazda MX-5 Championship races this weekend, so it's always been very positive. That's Tucker in the lead, second is Burge, third is Ledoyen, fourth place is Adam Craig. So they're still all just about there or thereabouts. That's Hector Hurst braking for the corner as Wootton and Hawkins go side by side. Barely possible to make out who it is that's fighting for position in these conditions. It's incredibly difficult to see what's going on. So the drivers just knitting their way through Luffield. I couldn't quite make out who that was, just to prove the point, unfortunately, as there is Pollard battling away with Hector Hurst right behind him. So Hector Hurst making his debut in the Mazda MX-5 Championship this weekend, and my goodness, he's getting a real baptism of fire out of it. It's been a while since he's raced on the Silverstone National. We're on board with Bruce Robinson, the 90, as he now tries to make his way up the order. This is what he can see. This isn't racing cars, it's submarines as they run around the circuit in incredibly appalling conditions. But the BC Cars run driver is doing a fine job keeping hold of it under the circumstances. Craig gets up alongside Nick LeDoyen as they duel for third place. Then it's Bill Taylor from Pollard, Hector Hurst in seventh. Then it's Hawkins, Wootton alongside Oliver Graham, and that's the clearest shot I've had of all of the drivers battling for position for quite a while. Hence I was able to keep a better eye on who's in what position, but that's just because of the spray. I have to say the AJK crew here doing an amazing job keeping an eye on what's going on around the circuit. Up the inside, Adam Craig dives for the inside line into second position, but as he overshot, is Adrian Burge going to get a chance to get him back again? Oh, Bill Taylor running very wide, but that might just be his racing line in these conditions, so I'm not sure if he's off the road or not. He's not off the road, he's lost a place, but he's still there. I just saw a flash of yellow as he came through, but Paul Tucker, despite his battle scars from the first race in the A group yesterday, is having a terrific run in race 2 of the B group here today in the appalling wet conditions. Fair play to all of the drivers. I would have thought we'd have a lot more spills rather than thrills in this race in these conditions, but hey, fair credit to the drivers. There's some brilliant racers in this field and they are hanging on to things beautifully considering, and we have got a race on. So Nick LeDoyen chasing after Adrian Burge. They always say that the rain causes carnage and mayhem. Well, not if you've got some safe pairs of hands. And in the Mazda MX-5 Championship, these guys are very mature drivers. They're great racers, great skilled, very down-to-earth folk. They love to go racing. And even in these conditions, you are not going to get to see anybody doing anything particularly stupid. These guys are very, very focused on what their objective is. And even in the pouring rain, the massive balls of spray being thrown behind the likes of Paul Tucker, Adam Craig and Adrian Burge, as Nick LeDoyen closes in for a battle for third, these guys are going to be absolutely in command wherever they possibly can. Obviously accidents happen and there are going to be moments in this race where drivers are going to find a little bit more than they bargained for. That's Hector Hurst now in front of Hawkins actually, so they've come through and Hurst is through into 6th position now. Who has he displaced? I think Bill Taylor's no longer there in 5th, that's why Taylor's dropped back into at least 8th. So Pollard is through to 5th, Hurst is through to 6th, and Alan Hawkins in the 722 is there into... Oh, hang on, that looked like somebody's bumper on the start-finish straight. Now that is a bit of a problem. I think somebody's lost their rear bumper and it's actually come off on the inside line of the start-finish straight. Now that in these conditions could cause a safety car as Nick LeDoyen goes around. He spins it full 360, well very nearly 390 actually, and manages to catch the car back, but that's going to drop him a long way down the order as Paul Tucker starts to lap the tail enders for the first time. It is the 46 of David Rickards he passes first. Is that a mistake there for the second place man? Coming through. No, I think David Rickards is there and Chris Wilson is being lapped as well. My apologies. So Tucker is through. Burge is through. He's got through to second place, no problem at all. Oh, sorry, that's Adam Craig, isn't it? There's Burge. And then 4th position now is going to be Pollard in front of Hector Hurst in 5th. So the drivers coming through. Now the top 5 are the ones who go through to the A group. Hector Hurst, of course, started in the A group and after a couple of moments ended up down the order. Now that is the 13 going through. That is Scott Leach. Scott Leach has absolutely charged his way forward. That's an amazing progress from Leach. He's in front of Wootton, Muggleston, 44, Bill Taylor. So there is Leach. There he is, just on the back of Oliver Graham. You can see the tongue licking on the mouth of the radiator on the front of his car. Scott Leach has charged his way from 29th and last on this grid, and he is now in there behind Hurst in 5th, Hawkins in 6th, Leach is in 8th place. That's an amazing run of progress. He's made up 21 places off the start, and he's right in there behind Oliver Graham. So now he's going to try and make his bid for 7th place. He's got no fear at all in the wet, that's for certain. Is he going to go side by side? Yes, he is. He's going to try and chop across on Graham before the braking zone, and he's done it. 7th place for Scott Leach. What a drive this is from the number 13. He's having a magnificent run here as they come off the turn once again and back onto the Wellington straight. Some drivers are making lighter work of these conditions than others, of course. And for Scott Leach, this is just a drive in the park. Absolutely brilliant. He's running a great race at this point. So as they come down the straight one more time, he's obviously going to try and keep the car very well planted to that inside line. Here come the drivers further back. That's Nick LeDoyen, so he has recovered. And he's made up a couple of places already. Anthony Hutchins, I think, was ahead of him at one point. So now Hutchins is trying to get him back. But obviously after that spin, Nick Ledoyen will need to get his confidence back pretty sharpish. He will not want to lose too many more places. That's Richard Wooten battling with Charles Muggleston. Two more drivers that are making good progress in the wet, having made their way further forward. Richard Wooten slipped to 9th position from the front end of the grid in the A group, in the B race earlier on, of course, as he charged his way through. So there's a great chance for these guys to continue to make progress. Nick Ledoyen there still in front of Hawkins. Anthony Hawkins in the tricolor machine. Rumours arrive that he's actually going to be selling up very soon, which is a real shame for Anthony Hutchins if that is the case. He's a very well-liked character in the Mazda MX-5 Championship, but these cars are all very closely run and very ultra-competitive, so if anybody's having a look thinking, well, I could probably do this, I've got a good enough know-how with the racing skills, I know how to drive a car quickly, I've got some mates who could be my mechanics, well, then all you need to do is get in touch with the BRSCC on their website, brscc.co.uk, and there might be an opportunity to get onto the Mazda MX-5 grid. Oh, bit of a wobble from Pollard as he starts the battle with Adrian Burge, who is hanging on to that 3rd position for dear life, but he may lose it now on the exit as Pollard gets a good run through Luffield. He has to slot back in. Still lots of slipstreaming and drafting in this championship, even in the wet conditions. The difficulty is into the braking zone. You've got to be that much more careful as side by side goes Luxouch. Oh, and that's an off there. Unfortunately, that is game over for Chi Mung. He's never going to get out of there in a month of Sundays. That is bogged down and out of it, unfortunately. He's going to need a little bit of a recovery, unfortunately, because that car can't stay on that part of the circuit without bringing out the safety car, so they're going to need to clear that one fairly rapidly. Bit of a twitch there from Adam Craig, but still running well in 2nd behind Paul Tucker. So Adam Craig running well in 2nd position, trying to hold on. So Paul Tucker is still your leader. Adam Craig in 2nd position, double waved yellows, of course, for Chi Mung, as Paul Tucker is going to have to slot in and stay behind Chris Wilson's machine. And Wilson is obviously being incredibly careful because of the impending doom of the wet part of the circuit, so that's going to help the man in 2nd place now, and Adam Craig, who's catching up on Paul Tucker as a result of that. So that has really impeded Tucker, who wanted to get past Wilson fairly rapidly, not having to worry about that under yellow flag conditions. Craig managed to get past him after that point, but he's made up some valuable time there on Paul Tucker, so the pressure is on Tucker a little bit to try not to lose any more to Adam Craig in 2nd position. 3rd place, I think, is still Adrian Burge, although it's not easy to tell in these conditions. But there is Paul Tucker running in the lead of the race, the number 22. He's just got to keep it together. This is such a difficult race to lead in these sorts of conditions. David Rickard's there battling with James Love, and they are the next cars for the race leader, Paul Tucker, to lap. But you can see Adam Craig is definitely a lot closer than he was. We look back, there's the battle for 3rd. It's Burge in front of Pollard and Hector Hurst. Hector Hurst is going in, and Hawkins has spun it. Hawkins has spun it into the gravel. He's never getting out of there either. Oh, that's a real shame for number 722, Alan Hawkins. And the number once made famous by Sterling Moss in the Mille Miglia back in the 1950s now becomes a statistic in the gravel trap at Maggots. That's such a shame for Alan Hawkins. Meanwhile, Matt Pollard is going to try and make the move for 3rd. He waits for his moment, bides his time. He doesn't want to join his colleague in the gravel trap. So Alan Hawkins, I'm afraid, is going to have to start the 3rd and final B group race of the weekend from the back of the grid later on today. And if the weather is just like this, then at least he'll know what not to do next time. So here comes Pollard on the back of Adrian Burge. Hector Hurst is just sat there in 5th position waiting for an opportunity. The top 5 go through, of course, so that is doubly painful for Alan Hawkins. He had a top 5 finish looking likely if he could battle with these two, but now it's going to be Burge and Pollard dueling for 3rd place, with Hector Hurst sat in 5th position hoping for an opportunity to come through. Burge is going to drift out wide. He's going to use another cut. Oh, that's why. Goodness me. David Rickards. They split the infinitive, and James Love's going to spin it. James Love spins in behind the leaders who have just lapped him. So James Love spins the car. Yellow flags are going to wave, but not before the battle for 3rd place actually gets there. Hurst is now going to try and make his bid around the outside of Matt Pollard. But that was a very close call for James Love. He was lucky about that one. Now, Matt Pollard is waving furiously. Is he trying to get them to stop the race? Now, I've seen this before. We've got yellow flags down at Brooklands still for the recovery of Chi Mung's car. But I've seen drivers in these conditions, when it just gets too harsh, in club racing and in internationals, just saying stop the race. And they wave furiously as Hector Hurst tries to come around the outside of Pollard. He then tucks for the outside of Lovefield. Pollard is clearly getting riled here in these conditions, trying to make his move on Adrian Burge. Hector Hurst has got himself into a bit of a sweet spot. The car is working beautifully in these conditions, and he may get a chance of a podium here. Top 5 would do. That would be enough to put him back into the A group, but he wants a little bit more than that. They're back onto the main straight. Burge, Pollard, Hurst. 3, 4, 5 in this race as they continue to battle away for position, and Burge has been nudged there by Pollard. Pollard missed his braking point and Burge has spun it. Now I'm afraid that is almost certainly going to be a penalty for Matt Pollard. I know exactly what he did there, not his fault. It's one of those incidents where basically you get on the brakes, you have not really read the braking point correctly, and Hurst has got through Pollard in the moment. Now that was not intentional from Matt Pollard at all. In the wet conditions, it's very hard to judge your braking zone, and unfortunately he was just a metre or so out. He definitely tried his best to get onto the brakes, but in that moment you just end up locking up, and he had nowhere to go but into the back of Adrian Burge. Unfortunately, he's probably going to get a penalty for that, but totally not his fault. Very easy to do in the wet conditions. I feel for Matt Pollard there. Obviously, you've got to feel sorry for Adrian Burge, who has got going again, and he's there tucked up behind Charles Muggleston, I think that is. But you've got to feel sorry for Matt Pollard as well. That was not intentional. That was not a deliberate move to shove him off the road at all. So, back on board with Adrian Burge. His race is not over. It's just got a little bit more interesting, and that is Scott Leach, is it? No, sorry, that's Oliver Graham behind us. Then Richard Wotton. So those two still battling away. So Burge is there or thereabouts in the top 10, but that's not going to be any comfort to him when he realises that he's going to finish the race outside the top 5, and therefore he won't be promoted back up into the A group. So Adrian Burge is going to be quite frustrated, but I'm sure he and Matt will have a conversation about that afterwards, where Matt will say, I didn't mean to, mate. It's just so difficult to pick your braking point here. And Adrian's a reasonable man. He'll shrug it off and go, fair enough, just don't do it again, mate. That was so irritating. Hurst is there in 3rd. Pollard is 4th. Scott Leach is in 5th position in front of Muggleston and Burge. Careful, Scott. You've done such an amazing job. Don't throw it away now. As they continue to battle away. Well, there's no investigation into Matt Pollard. There's no warning for him either. So I have a feeling that they've just taken that incident into context. And Pollard basically just going into the back of Burge, but that wasn't deliberate. They could see his brake lights were on. They could see he was trying to make it. Unfortunately, it just happens. I don't see any penalties being handed out. It's one of those things, but try and tell Adrian Burge that that's going to be okay. He's not going to agree. That's Richard Wotton trying to knit his way through, as the rain on the camera lens is getting unbearable now for the poor cameramen down there. They're working so hard to keep on top of things. There is Paul Tucker coming out of the final turn. He is running beautifully out front. That appears to be one of the Grey Trexes in behind him, although it's a very similar coloured car to the Grey Trexes. It's not one of them because both of them are in the A group. Last lap, Paul Tucker running well out in front as he continues his way. He's not really put a wheel wrong in this race. He's not really skipped a beat. The 22 has just been in control since the start and utilising the wet conditions in his favour. He's just been looking after things very steadily. So Paul Tucker is looking good out in front. Now who's that? He's coming up to lap. That is Richard Bartlett, the 78. But he's just about going to lap him before the end of the race. I'm not sure he's going to get anybody else, but that's not his focus at the moment. All he's interested in is bringing that car home on the island. It's very tricky. You can see how much spray is still coming off the car. Look at that. You can't really see down the Wellington straight at all. Fair credit to the drivers who are working so hard in these conditions, but it's going to be Paul Tucker. He knits up the inside of Richard Bartlett. No need to make any silly risks. He knits his way through Brooklands. There's still so much standing water around the circuit. Massive credit to the BRSCC officials as well. They could easily have thrown a safety car out for this one, but it proved that although there's been a couple of moments in this race, we didn't actually need one. We got proper racing out of it, so brilliant stuff as Paul Tucker comes out of the very wet Woodcote corner, down the straight and over the line, and it is a victory for Paul Tucker. He'll be delighted with that and very relieved that the race is over as well. Adam Craig will splash his way through for second position, and in third place is going to be, look back, Hector Hurst. Hector Hurst on his debut in the championship picks up a B group podium, and he will go back into the A group. He'll be very happy with that. Matt Pollard across the line in fourth position after a tricky race. Mugglestone in fifth from Scott Leach, Oliver Graham, Richard Wootton, Adrian Burge frustrated but ninth, and Bill Taylor in 10th. Fastest lap of the race, Scott Leach from 29th to 6th. Nick Ledoyen in front of Anthony Hutchins from Tim Hutchinson, Chisnell Rawls, Souch Carter, Rumsey, Bruce Robinson and Chris Ginn. And then our final stragglers across the line, Dale Whiteman, Lyndsay, Wilson, Love, Bartlett and Rickards. Alan Hawkins, Chi Mung and Russ Lyndsay are going to have to clear out some gravel from their car. What a day.
Very deserving first place there for you. You started pole, finished pole. Happy?
Very, very happy. Couldn't believe it. Had a bad start, but I managed to get it back by the first corner. And I've just got to say a big thank you to Tucker Motorsport. On Friday I had a massive smash. Did not think I was even coming out at all on Friday. That was it. I was ready to put the car away. The mechanics worked like mad. Done a fantastic job, and here I am. I'm back out. The car's great. Thank you very much to my mechanics. Thank you, Tucker Motorsport.
So you're back in the A's?
Back in the A's, yeah.
Back in the A's. So have you got a plan for this afternoon? Do you think your car will be ready for another wet race?
Oh, definitely. The car is absolutely spot on. I'm ready to go. I'm just going to drive it like I've stole it, and the police are chasing me, and let's see what we can do.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
Adam, congratulations on your second place. Wet conditions, absolutely atrocious out there. How is it from a driver's point of view?
Well, the first two laps were an absolute nightmare. We started fifth after a few issues yesterday, and I couldn't see a single car in front of me for the first two laps, and by the time I managed to get through them, Tucker was just that bit too far ahead, and the rest of the race was all about just trying to claw him in without sort of chucking it off the road.
But podium position, that puts you into the A race later on this afternoon. Conditions are likely to get a little bit worse. Can you cope with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the wet races in the A, you can actually make a lot of places up. So let's see how far through the grid we can get.
Fantastic. Congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Hector, well done on that. Bit tricky out there being wet. Any corners that caught you out?
No, to be honest, it was all pretty consistent. It was just trying to see where you're going was tough, especially when you're behind someone. And first time racing with a windscreen, so good job we had the wipers. But yeah, no, it was good fun, and got a bit of confidence now for the next race.
Brilliant. So you'll be going up into the A race now. You'll be starting quite near the back. Do you have any idea if you're going to finish mid-pack or at the front?
I've no idea. Just drive as fast as possible and see what happens.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Hector.
Cheers. Thanks. Have a good day.